How does Spider-Man defeat an enemy that is not only stronger than he is, but nearly as fast and more durable? Right from the start, we get a taste of the Lizard's sheer power as he rips a whole tree straight from the ground and proves to be essentially bulletproof. If only his design lived up to all that physical hype. Something about the way he's drawn just doesn't really click for me. I think it's the honker. He really needs that long gator-like schnoz. I hate the flat face look. Unfortunately, it's kind of the same design they went with in the films, and I didn't really like it much there either. Thankfully, we shouldn't have to wait long to get into the action, because the Daily Bugle has made a personal challenge to Spider-Man. Head down south and defeat this mysterious lizard monster. There's just one problem. Jonah doesn't actually believe the lizard exists. He's just trying to sell more papers. That means it's going to be up to Spider-Man to convince him otherwise, because there's no way that Peter Parker can afford the plane ticket to Florida on his own dime. This is all ultimately going to lead to a fantastic scene between Spider-Man and Jonah. But before we take a trip to the bayou, we have to make a tiny pit stop at the museum so Peter can do a little research on lizards, because they're basically just mini dinosaurs, right? But as always, there's a little kink in his plans, a glitch in the Matrix. Shortly after he arrives, a group of thieves decide to rob the place, and while our favorite long underwear character sneaks off to change into his spider duds, the criminals take Liz Allen hostage. Little do they know that Spidey is perched right above them. Dropping in, he gives them this snarky little thumbs up before making their faces meet his fist. A quick compliment to her baby blues, and Spider-Man flees the scene, leaving a smitten Liz Allen fawning in his wake. To be honest, I thought this part was a little bit of an odd duck. It basically doesn't do jack to move the plot along. I kind of get the impression that it was added just to make sure and squeeze just a little bit of teen drama into the issue before we leave the state. And now back to what really matters. Spider-Man webbing old J. Jonah to the ceiling for a little friendly chit-chat. Spidey agrees to fight with the lizard, but demands that Jonah send a photographer to document the bout. As he makes his exit, the webbing expires, sending an enraged Jonah crashing to the floor. There's even a little implied dirty language here. This had to be like pretty taboo back in the 60s when this issue was new, right? So shame on you, JJ, you potty mouth. To be totally honest though, I would love an entire issue that's just J. Jonah and Spider-Man together. Just two partners in crime, bickering it up for 21 whole pages. Anyways, JJ takes the bait hook, line, and sinker. He agrees to send Peter to Florida, but there's just one catch. He plans to tag along for the trip. Now you would think having Jonah tag along would be a massive obstacle for Peter to deal with. But almost the second they land, Peter just ditches the geezer almost instantly, and it's off to hunt a lizard. Unfortunately, that's not going to be as easy as Peter thinks. It really doesn't take that long before Peter finds his target, or rather, his target finds him. As Spider-Man trudges through this creepy swamp, his spider sense begins to tingle ominously. Suddenly, a green scaled hand snakes up out of the water and snags his ankle, pulling him into the water with inhuman strength. They scuffle in the murky depths for a moment before Spider-Man escapes by pushing mud into the lizard's face. Yeah, that really happened. Anyways, they continue their fight on land and Spider-Man is almost blindsided by the speed of his opponent. Unfortunately, as he grabs a hold of his tail, he is also drastically underestimating his strength. As the lizard whips around, flinging Spider-Man so hard, he flies nearly a half a mile through the air. And it wouldn't be a 1960s Marvel comic without a sprinkle of plot convenience, right? Because out of all the places in the middle of a swamp in Florida that he could land, Spider-Man just so happens to plop down directly next to the home of Dr. Curt Connors, the exact reptile expert Peter was already planning to meet with. We spend a brief moment with the crying wife of Dr. Connors before it's supervillain origin time. Curt Connors was a surgeon that lost an arm during the war. Because of this, he became interested in reptiles and the way that they have the ability to regrow their limbs, which sets him on a path trying to replicate this ability in humans. Unfortunately, this guy has absolutely no self-control, because the moment he sees successful results of a serum on a rabbit that he was able to regrow its leg on, he just guzzles the thing down himself. So props for the extreme dedication, I guess. His arm miraculously grows back. Unfortunately, it comes at the cost of his body transforming, and it isn't only his body that changes, his mind becomes duller as well. To protect his family, he left the house, and he urges his wife to take their son, leave, and never come back. I really love this image of the lizard crying. It's so corny and lame, but like, this is the kind of crap I'm here for. But we've quickly run out of time for origin stories because Billy's gone, almost becoming snake bait as he runs in fear at the sight of his own father. Spidey swoops in to save the poor kid, but the lizard attacks him, and it's time for a brief round 2 as Spider-Man punches the monster, nearly breaking his hand on his hard scales, and he realizes that his webbing is basically no better than paper against this creature. Thankfully, Curt's wife shows up and he flees into the water. So Spider-Man can't really hit him, his webs have just about no effect, and the lizard is nearly as fast and probably stronger than our hero. What's the play here for little old Webhead? You know it, I know it, we all know it. It's time for a Spidey MacGuffin. Not only is the lizard an extremely dangerous foe, but Peter would much rather save the man from this nightmare than just defeat him. So he spends a few panels whipping up a remedy cocktail for the hungry hippo. Unfortunately, Lizard Boy shows up right as he finishes and hurls a giant desk at Spider-Man, burying him in broken wood and rubble, before disappearing with a serum which he plans to use to build a lizard army. And next up, as Spidey makes his plans to hunt down Curt, we get my favorite set of panels in the entire issue. Even better than Crying Lizard, and possibly like all of Marvel Comics maybe? Let me introduce you all to a new line of footwear, web shoes. And so the time has come for our final round, as Spider-Man finds the lizard surrounded by a group of alligators for our final confrontation. The fight quickly ends up on the inside of a tower of a crumbling ruin, as Spider-Man works to separate Curt from his reptilian army, locking him into a tiny room. The lizard chases him around the room, a little bit slower than Spider-Man, but far stronger, as Peter leads him up onto the ceiling, before expertly knocking him free. As they fall, he pulls the cure off his belt, and right as they're landing, he pours it right down the lizard's throat. But the lizard gets in a few solid blows, nearly knocking Peter unconscious, just as the cure begins to take effect and our hero hangs helpless. Curt and his wife are thankful for Spider-Man saving their family, and Curt agrees to burn all of his research. Our story ends with a pissed off Jonah, who now believes the lizard was a hoax. A quick and hopeful phone call to Liz, who can't be held on the line because she's waiting for a call from Spider-Man. And to wrap everything up with a nice little bow, we get a sweet little lover's poem from Spider-Man to J. Jonah Jameson. Roses are red, violets are blue, I'm still at large, so phooey to you.